Hey, family. Welcome to another episode of Soulful Conversations with Frank. And
Sheila Battle.
she thought I forgot.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a minute, fam. We hope everybody is doing well.
Yes.
Lots happening.
Yes, let's catch up.
Can we catch up? Do y'all mind if we catch up?
I think people like it when we catch up. So, probably the most obvious thing is the big chop.
Yeah. That's obvious.
I had locks for 10 years and woke up one morning and cut them off.
One Friday morning.
Wish I had a cool story to tell.
She just cut them off.
I just cut them off. But we had both been sick. And I remember telling the nurse one day that I wanted to shave my head. And she said, "Miss Battle, please don't do that, because if you shave your head's still going to hurt." And that was wisdom. And so I didn't do it at that moment. But shortly after that, during the recovery journey, I just cut them off.
Yep. Just nipped it in the bud. She came downstairs and was like, "Bo, I cut my hair." I was like, "What?" She's been talking about it for a long time.
I've been talking about it
and
for
it
a long
looks good. I like
time.
it. I like it.
Hey.
I like it. So,
Okay.
that's,
I'm getting used to it. He likes it. The girls like it, but I'm getting used to it. So that was something that happened. And Trinity is headed towards graduation fast and furiously. So we got to celebrate with her.
So we've been on the road a lot.
Yeah, we've been on the road.
So-
We've been on the road. So that's part of the reason why I just sheer fatigue. But one of the weekends when we were away, we attended a marriage conference.
Yes, we did.
And we will not say the name of that conference because they are not a supporter of this here podcast.
But it was a weekend to remember. I would say that. It really was. There were a lot of good things there. It really was. We had a great time.
And of course, the struggle was to be participants and be fully engaged and active in the content, and to not sit there as content creators and review their materials.
Yeah.
That was hard. But
that was.
But it took some intention to say, okay, wait, we're here as a couple. We're not here as,
And then we had like conversations, which the way they outlined it, where you would have conversations and discussions about different things. And so we had to talk about us because us was in the room.
Us's was in the room.
But it was some very good information shared. And we just decided, that like we believe all couples, we needed a tune-up as well.
Yeah.
So we took the old marriage of 25 years, soon to be 26, into the garage for a tune-up. That is what we did.
So crazy. And while we did do a lot of talking about us and our relationship and the ways in which we can make it better, I feel like it dawned on both of us distinctly at different times during the conference how important it is to get away and do this. And I think we've talked about this a little bit before. We've talked about how important it is to say, okay, we need a minute.
Yeah.
We need a minute, and we need to be poured into, as opposed to always pouring, whether that be to other people or to each other.
Yeah.
Just the significance of saying we prioritize us enough to sow into us and to go away. And so that's what we did. And it was a beautiful weekend. It was fabulous food and all kinds of things. The hotel was nice, all that.
Date night.
Yeah, we had a date night incorporated into the weekend and all of that. And so one of the conversations that came up is, this would be great if so-and-so was here. And this would be great if so-and-so, or this is really good information for so-and-so. Because what we do, we talk to couples all the time.
Yeah.
And so it was easy to, bring situations that we know into the space and into the content. But what it got me thinking about is, how do you know when you need a tune-up?
Yeah.
Because it had been a long time. Like we hadn't been to a couples retreat in a long time.
Right.
And
And
you found, I
that's
think you
that was
found it.
I did. And that was pre-COVID, so we can't blame the pandemic.
Right,
we
right,
just we
right. We just
just
hadn't done it. We
and
just
and
hadn't done
then
it.
trying to find one. I don't mean that in a shady way. You're laughing, but then trying to find one as well.
Oh, the shade.
You know,
Oh,
you
the
know.
shade.
But we did. We tried this one.
Yes.
It was very 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 good. And so, just on what you're saying, I think that kind of was the overarching feeling of just knowing when you need to do something like that, or knowing when you need to tune up, or
Mhm.
knowing when you need to sit down and have a conversation with someone. We talk a lot about people identifying people to pour into their marriage, mentors,
Speak now card.
speak now card, people that have had a successful marriage and can pour into you. And doing conferences, like we went to, also helped as well. And so we were really thinking today that this was a topic that we just wanted to have a conversation about.
So, if you are part of a church or part of a faith community, a temple, a mosque, um, and that entity does not have a thriving,
Yeah,
energetic, and active marriage ministry
yeah.
or small group for couples, seek out these conferences. And now don't go see any and everybody. Now,
Yeah.
some of these
Be
folks
prayerful.
is a little special.
And if you don't know the words of prayer, ask somebody that do know the words of prayer, and they can direct you. I mean, seriously, because you want to make it worth your time and your
And your
money.
money, yeah.
You know.
So, and I will say that I had heard of these folks, but had probably not really dived into their content.
Yeah.
Um, but when you're doing your research, check out even things that you hadn't heard
Hmm.
of or
Hmm.
people who aren't in your normal scope, as you're browsing through social media and things like that, and cast your net wide. Like,
Hmm.
don't isolate yourself to your block, your city, your community. You might have to leave the state.
Yeah.
You might have to go across the state, to find a resource, to find a quality experience
Yeah.
for you and your mate. And so we did all of those things, and this worked out for the good. It was a wonderful experience. Like I said, we're not going to get into details, but again, where we landed, and one of the places where we landed was how to know if your relationship needs a tune up. And so, in one of the sessions, we talked about this idea of swinging the pendulum between oneness and isolation,
Yeah.
right? So, the idea is that no marriage, even if it's stuck, it's moving.
Yeah.
It's moving in one direction or the other. The actions of both parties is either taking that marriage toward oneness or it's moving it in the direction of isolation. And so this idea of, you know, where are you in that pendulum swing? Are you swinging towards oneness? Um, and if you're not, this idea of being in a committed relationship and feeling isolated is a telltale sign that you might be in need of a marital or relationship tune up. And so, a couple of those specific examples are things like if you are looking at your mate, your spouse, your partner, and you are thinking, this was a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this whole thing was a mistake.
Yeah.
That's a sign that you need some intervention.
Yeah.
It's a sign that, and when we say go away and do a conference, we also understand that financially
Hmm.
that might not be the remedy for every couple, depending on what season of life they're in. If you got small children, you got to figure out, who gonna keep them and do all of that. But maybe what you can do is get a coach.
Yeah.
So these identifiers aren't just for, spend all of this money, go away, pay for a conference, pay for hotels and meals and gas and all of that stuff. Some of it is if this is where you are, these are signs
Yeah.
that you're in that isolation bucket and that it's time to reach out for some help.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, if you are looking at your spouse, if you are sitting around and thinking, we should not have done this,
Yeah.
it's a sign that maybe it's time to bring a third party in or for the two of you to go out and seek some help.
Yes.
Okay, you ready for another one?
Sure.
Okay. Another one is the inability to effectively resolve conflict. If you are partnered with somebody and the process moves from incident to conflict to silence back to incident,
Mm-hmm.
and there has been no resolution of then you, my friend, it's time to do a maintenance appointment. It's time to do a maintenance check. By retreat, by counselor, by therapist, or by coach. It's time. Because if you don't have the skills to resolve conflict,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way you can thrive.
Yeah. And
You got to figure out how to resolve stuff, family.
yeah, and part of that is something which I think we mentioned it earlier, oneness and isolation. You know, we were having a conversation some time ago with some folks, and the thing about just people who don't like conflict, and they just
They're
kind of
conflict
they
avoidant.
conflict avoidant, and they just kind of go to this corner to that corner, and that issue is still there. And I think, Sheila, you brought it up, how if the continued practice of that have can make you have those days when you look and say this was a mistake,
Mm,
and eventually resentment.
yeah.
You resent
See, you gonna
that
bring up that word
individual.
and you gonna make me do the spiel about resentment.
No, but it's true, because you sit there and you get like the side eyes and all the other
Yeah,
things
and the
that
teeth
come
sucking and
with
the
that individual. And the thing about it could be a miscommunication.
mm,
That you have something, if both parties sit down and talk about, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I apologize. Could be an easy fix.
or how you heard it wasn't
Right.
the way it was said, things
Right.
like that. So here's the problem with sweeping stuff under the rug, which is what essentially you're doing when you don't resolve it. You're
Right.
just sweeping it under the rug. Eventually, someone trips,
Yeah.
and you don't get to predetermine whether they trip and bounce back up,
Mm.
or whether they trip and something is broken, a
Mm-hmm.
muscle is torn,
Mm-hmm.
if something detrimental happens.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, in the same way that the older you get, if you fall, it has more consequences. The longer you stay in a relationship, if you fall, it has greater consequences, because
Yeah.
not only do you have the investment of time, usually you have the investment of other people. You have the dependence of children and
Yeah.
things like that, and mortgages and bills and all kinds of stuff. And so then it's no longer just about you and that person and
Mm-hmm.
whatever the conflict is. It is a pebble in the river of all the things
Yeah.
that ripple from that conflict. And so you want to get good, family, at figuring out how to resolve conflict. And
Mm-hmm.
silence, while it is a positive tool to keep things from escalating out of control, it is not the final answer.
Right.
Silence cannot be the final answer. There has to be a remedy, there has to be an elixir, there has to be a coming back together. And we talk all the time about repair and recovery. There has to be a way that you repair and recover. If not, it's not really resolved.
Yeah.
It's not really resolved. Okay.
Yeah. I just remember, like, at the conference, someone mentioned the thing about the check engine light being on,
Oh yeah. That's an oldie
and
good but goodie.
older but goodie, and you just keep on
You
driving
just keep on
around with
trying.
it. And it could be something simple, but then the longer you drive with it, and the longer the problem gets deeper and deeper. And so, if you get that feeling in your knower that
Mm-hmm.
something's not right, or there's a very uncomfortable feeling,
Yeah.
just in the house, being around each other. Sometimes we'll slide by each other, and just we do that like nothing, like we're good
When you're really not.
when you're really not.
Yeah.
But don't do that, because
And can I
don't do it.
share something?
What's that?
You're not fooling anybody. Like I know we've said this before. So you're not fooling anybody. And for any of you who have children who live in your house,
Yeah.
when you are doing that silent thing and you are moving around each other, your kids, they might not have the language, they might not know the what, but they know something is wrong, something is off, something is going on. And so you're not fooling anybody. And so one of the best things that you can do is show your children, yes, there will be conflict and we know how to resolve it.
Yeah.
So if you're going to let them see you fight, let them see you make up.
Yeah.
If you're going to let them see the conflict, let them also see the compromise and concessions that are made in order to repair and recover in a relationship. So do both, family, especially if you got little pairs of eyes and ears, looking and watching what you do. You want to bring some balance to that thing. So yeah, have the skills that you need to resolve conflict.
Because that leads into the next one. We're talking about the eggshells. Did you want to go there with the
So I
eggshells?
wasn't going to go there, but I felt like all of that is wrapped up in there. So either you're, part of that silent treatment is you feel like you can't really say what you want to say. So you're walking around on eggshells and you're not really, saying what needs to be said so that things can come to light. And if there's something that's happening that is offensive, you can't really address it if you don't get down to talking about it. So your sensitivities, Luther said, that's when my sensitivity gets in the way. Sometimes our sensitivity gets in the way. And, I'm a Luther fan. He's a Prince fan. I'm a Luther fan. When your sensitivities get in the way, it can keep you from having the effective conversation that would resolve the conflict and keeps you just in that space of silence, which does. Silence works for 15 minutes of grace. It does not work in meditation. It is not a way to resolve conflict.
So you can spend your relationship meditating.
Ruminating. I just posted something today about ruminating.
I saw that.
Okay. So as a seasoned couple, would you call us a seasoned couple? We came from the Holiness Church. That season thing is something.
Sound like Larry's or something.
I'm Perfect Blend. We're Perfect Blend.
Yeah, Perfect Blend.
Who also is not a sponsor of this here podcast, but if you want to be, info@thebattlestation.org, because I actually use that product. Yes, I do. Yeah. So anyway, this one came up because one of the things that I was impressed. I didn't even hear what he said. One of the things that I was impressed about was at the start of the conference, they wanted to know who had been married the longest.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised to see how many couples had been married over 25 years that were in that room.
Right.
I was so impressed with that. I don't think I've been, first of all, I've never been anywhere with that many couples.
Well, it was over 1,000 people.
It was over 1,000 people. So it was over 500 couples. And I've never been anywhere where there was over 500 couples. So I guess it was easy to be impressed. But it was shocking almost to me how many people who have been married over 25 years that were in the space and willing to come and to humble themselves and to learn and to get tools and to have this weekend away. It was just beautiful. It was beautiful. But one of the things that is a sign that it's time for a tune-up, it's time for some maintenance, is if you are looking at the breadth and the length of your relationship and feeling like, yeah, our best days are behind us. Like, that was the good old days. Like, when we first met, that was the good old days. When we was having sex like rabbits, that was the good old days. Like if every memory is coupled with this idea that the best isn't still yet to come, then that might be a reason for you guys to sit down with somebody and say, hey, you know what? Like, why are we thinking like that? Like, we're not elderly, we're able-bodied, there are things that we can do, there are ways that we can enjoy each other, and we should be having conversations about that instead of being stuck in reminiscing about what once was and all of that. And so I think that's a big thing, and maybe we've been a little negligent of couples who have been together as long as we have, because our audience is mostly people who've been married probably 10 to 15 years or less. So we don't get a lot of, communication from people who've been married, 25, 30 years. but
We
it
get
doesn't mean that the
right,
conversations still
right.
aren't needed.
Yeah, we get encouragement, but not
Yeah, we get
conversation.
encouragement,
Yeah.
right? We get encouragement. So shout out to our couples who are seasoned like us.
Y'all keep on doing what
Yeah,
you're
y'all
doing,
keep on doing what you're doing. It's
babies.
great. It's great. It's great. We get wonderful
The Lord
encouragement
gonna
from them.
bless you.
That's what
That's
they
what they
say.
say.
That's
Yeah,
what they
that's what they
say.
say.
And we appreciate it.
But
We
it's
appreciate it.
and to your point, I think I was just thinking, like we would see couples that had like those little scooter things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like taking time, holding hands with each other and just making their
And
way
laughing.
around, laughing.
Yeah.
And so, that was like I said, I was like, wow,
Yeah.
if you can be 45, 50, I think we had 50 years something in there.
60.
60
There was
years,
a 60, a couple that was together 63 years, and they were
63
sitting up front.
years, and still feel like you need to do
Yeah.
a
How cool is
maintenance
that?
checkup. That's so cool. I
How
mean,
cool is
it was
that?
very encouraging, and these folks do it a lot, and we'll go back.
Yeah, we'll go back.
So
Okay.
yeah, the best years are behind us.
If you're thinking that, it's a sign that you're in the isolation bucket and you need to turn towards some help, whether it be a retreat or a coach or something, just to help refresh things.
And if you need some in your spirit, Donna Lawrence had a song called "The Best Is Yet to Come." Just play that and get it in your spirit. The best. I'm not gonna sing.
All right, tenor section. Okay.
Tenor section.
So 2 more, and then we're gonna get out your way, family.
Not the
So
tenor section.
aren't you in the tenor section? You not as the soprano. Anyway, family, we gonna focus. See, this is what happens when it's been a long time, and then we come back, and then we act silly. Okay, so this we talked about the best years being behind. So that's for our 25 and up club, 25 and up couples who've been together that amount of time. But one of the things that we hear from our younger couples is that they're so busy.
Yeah, man.
Right? They're so busy. They're so busy. They're so busy. They've got jobs. They're in school. They got kids. The kids got activities. They're in church. They are part of all of these organizations. They're in sororities and fraternities and social clubs and all of this stuff. And everybody's schedule is so packed and so busy that it leaves little time for connection and intimacy, not sex. We're gonna get to that one. That's our last one. But it eats up the time. You only get 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
We teach you can't make time, you can only take time.
Yeah.
Everybody gets 24 hours. So you can't make time to do anything. What you can do is take time. You can take time and say, okay, yeah, we too busy.
Yeah.
We too busy. We know families that have calendars that are all the colors of the rainbow. Because everybody in the house has stuff scheduled all month long. They got digital ones.
And they have to do that.
Legit, the only way they can know where everybody is supposed to be is to put this calendar on the refrigerator or have it on everybody's phone, so that everybody knows where everybody's supposed to be, what time they're supposed to be there, and what time they're supposed to be picked up. And while that is efficient, and that's not what we're coming against, we are all for the tools that help you be productive. Yeah, we are for the tools. But if you are looking at the calendar and it's so jammed packed that there's no date night in there, there's no night off in there.
You're just tired looking at it. You're like our good friend Riza Gomez, tired.
Riza says she's tired. She said, I'm just tired.
If you just look at the calendar and you get tired.
I promise. I was on a call with someone today, Rachel, and she put her calendar up on the Zoom so that we could figure out our next meeting. And it was so many, it was like somebody had threw Skittles at the screen. Like it was so many colors, everything was coordinated, and it's very organized. But from the time she wakes up in the morning until after the sun goes down, there is a there was no white space. There were no white spaces where nothing's happening. It was like things on top of things that run into other things. And it was like, whoa, like you're one person. Like, how do you have a calendar that looks like this? If your family calendar looks like that, family, it's time to take a look at that.
Yeah,
it's time to take a look at
space for
yourself.
You gotta have space and time for one another,
and have space and time for your family to get somewhere and sit down,
and for yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so our last one, and we're gonna get off of here. How to know if your relationship needs a tune-up. If you are in a sexless marriage, you need a tune-up. If you are lacking touch, you need a tune up. If you are not having or have not had, and I'm throwing this one in there, if you have not recently had a conversation about pleasure, you need a tune up. And I'm going to pause right here because I've had conversations with at least 3 wives, 4 wives since we've been back. And I promised them that I was going to have a soulful conversation about pleasure. Women are not exploring pleasure, are not experiencing pleasure, and are not talking about pleasure. And I want to create a space for us to do that in ways that are not just sexual. So if you are in a sexless marriage, if you all are going way beyond either of your comfort zone of how much time in between, then yes, absolutely, family. There is no shame, there is no condemnation. If you don't have language, if the comfort and safety of this conversation is just not there, then find a retreat, find a coach, find a counselor that can help you have that conversation. Because intimacy, sex, is one of the beautiful gifts of marriage that doesn't have to lose its value over time. It can get better, my God, and better and better and better over time. But you got to learn how to talk about it. You got to be able to say, you know, my I'm shifting and changing.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies, if you are shifting from your 40s to your 50s, things don't feel the same anymore. You have to be able to have the language and you have to be comfortable enough to say to your partner, this is what I need now, because I'm in a different season of life. And some of the things that we used to do before, I can't just jump and do now. And men also, when they're shifting from 40 to 50, things change. And so being able to say, this is an issue for me. How is this for you? Or can we at least talk about it? Because what you don't want is either of you to feel guilty or to feel shame or to feel like, wow, like I'm not pleasing my partner and you're not talking about it, because left to your own devices, you
Right.
will create a belief system that may not be true. Right. And so I think it's really, really important that we have these conversations. I think it's important that women have these conversations with other women, that, women who are in a different season of life can tell the women coming up behind them, look, this is what you can expect. These are the things that happen, and this is how you handle it. It's not enough to just say, oh, yeah, girl, hot flashes are awful,
Mm-hmm.
or, menopause is awful. No, tell them young girls how to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them how to take care of themselves. Tell them how to manage their sexuality as their season is changing.
Mm-hmm.
All of that. The same thing from men. When men are young, this is what I heard. When men are young, they don't have any problem talking about how many notches they got on their belt. They don't have a problem with talking about how many females they've been with or whatever, whatever. But are those same men coming back after 50
Because
and saying things are different and things don't work the same way they
it,
used to work, and now this is what I got to do?
it's a hard conversation, but it's a necessary one
Yeah.
because you want to avoid your partner feeling like they aren't arousing you or making or
They're
that
not
they're
attracted
not
anymore.
attracted to you.
Hmm.
You get a lot of things, so it is a necessary kind. We touched on that a little bit too in our conversation in our man to man piece of it.
Yeah, other
um,
retreat.
because that was a thing where a lot of times when it's not talked about and you talked about in your own head and you're
Hmm.
ruminating something and you're
Hmm.
questioning, is there somebody else,
Mm.
or it's
Hmm.
just a lot of things can
Hmm.
come. And one of the gentlemen brought it that he had to have that conversation as well, after going to a doctor's visit, and sometimes with the medications that we take as we get older, the side effects,
Right.
all of those things are conversations to have with your significant other.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that is one of the things, and I know we have said this in a previous podcast too. Women will go, they're like, oh yeah, I need to go see the doctor. Like I need to go find out like what to do. Even if you go for the symptoms, not for the root. Like
Mhm.
I know women who say, look, I gotta call my doctor to get something about these hot flashes, or they online, they taking all kinds of herbs and trying out all kinds of stuff. But the fellas, Kind Kings, y'all go to the doctor too.
Yeah.
Go and get everything checked out. Make sure, this is just
Yep.
the natural progression of aging. Or if it's something else, then you want to know.
Yeah.
You want to know so that you can go ahead and get on top of that as quickly as possible and treat it so that it doesn't come up as an issue or a
Right.
hindrance in your sex life. So, family, what we've tried to share tonight are we ended up, I was going to keep it at 5, but we ended up doing 6 ways that you can know if your relationship is in need of a tune up. Number 1 was if you are looking at your spouse and feeling like this was a mistake. Regardless of length of time that you've been together, if you have regret about the decision that you made to become one, that's a time to call in for help and get a tune up. The next one was not resolving conflicts or arguments. If you don't have, good tools in place, family, to help you resolve conflict, because it's going to come up, you want to reach out, you want to tap into resources that can help you with that. Tagged onto that was this idea about walking around on eggshells
Eggshells.
where you don't feel like you can have your say. You don't feel like you can speak authentically and sincerely from your heart because you're going to pay a price if you do.
Right.
Um, if you have the mindset, if you're a seasoned couple like us and you feel like, well, our best years are behind us, we just gonna go ahead and ride this out until one of us die. If you got that kind of,
Ooh.
if you got that kind of, well, we know people. If you got that kind of attitude, or if you just feel like, look, she ain't going nowhere, I ain't going nowhere, we just gonna go ahead and ride this out. But you're not happy. You don't have
Mm.
connection or intimacy. You're not experiencing pleasure and delight in your relationship. If you feel like your best years are behind you, get with someone who can help you have hope around your future together, right? For our younger couples, if you are too busy to
Too busy
connect,
to
if you are
connect.
too busy to connect and you're so busy on this merry-go-round of go, go, go and do, 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 it is wisdom for you to invite someone else into the conversation to help you dissect exactly how busy you are, what's necessary, what's a priority, and what really could be stopped or turned off or backed away from. You could stop doing some of these things. And honestly, family, your kids really don't want to do all the stuff. They really don't want to do all of this stuff. I remember we had a young person in our life and their mama was dragging them all around and she was like, I don't even want to do all this stuff.
I
I
just
don't even
want to
know.
stay
I
here
just
with
want,
y'all.
yeah, I just want to hang out with y'all.
I
Like,
was
if
like,
she could just drop me off at y'all house, I'd be good. But I got to go do this and I got to go do that. And she didn't really want to do it. So some of this stuff that we think is for their good and we think it's developing a team mindset in them and social skills and all of this stuff, there is a such thing as overdoing it. So family, if you need that check, you need somebody that speak now to say, yeah, wait, this is too much, reach out and get some help. And then the last one was if you are in a sexless marriage. Now, if you're in a sexless marriage due to medical conditions and the two of you have agreed on how you will still
yeah.
experience pleasure outside of sex, then go for it. But if you are just in a sexless marriage because it's not good or because you physically haven't had the opportunity to explore one another in the season of life that you're in now and say, okay, that stuff we used to do, we can't do that no more, but let's explore. Let's have fun with each other. Let's make sure that we live like the marriage bed isn't defiled, and let's figure out how we can still experience pleasure and joy in this relationship. So if you're in a sexless marriage, and we want to also add the caveat, please talk to your doctors. If something physically is preventing you from having physical intimacy in your marriage, you want to get that checked out. And also, if you need a sex therapist, so say it's not physical, but maybe it's mental, maybe
Mental.
it's emotional, maybe it is the stress of life. Like, it's not really that your pieces and parts don't work. It's just that the stress is keeping you from sensing and feeling a desire for your mate. Yeah, they're sex therapists, and we actually have contact information for one. So if someone is struggling in that way, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll connect you to her and her practice so that you can get some help.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
So, family, we want you to do this tune up. I mean, this was just 5 things, but
Yeah.
you know in your spirit, you know in your heart, okay? If something's not right, we just want to keep encouraging you, family.
Right.
Reach out. There are resources available. And whether you've been together a long time like us, it doesn't mean that you still couldn't gain something from
Yeah.
going to a marriage retreat, participating in a workshop, that kind of thing. getting a coach, just doing a check-in once a year or whatever. But use the resources that are out there. The Bible says that everything we need for life and godliness has been provided to us. And so what you need to help your marriage make it and thrive is available. You just got to reach out.
Please reach out.
Okay.
Please do. So, family, that's it. We hope you all have enjoyed this episode.
Yes, yes. It's good to be back on.
Yeah, it's good to be back on. If you have a question, you can email us at info@thebattlestation.org. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
I personally love to have podcasts that answer questions that you all have. It makes it really relevant to me. I think I speak for both of us when I say that. It makes it really relevant. So if you have a question, we have our researcher over here. She'll find an answer for you.
Yes, because that's what we do.
That's what we do. So I'm Frank.
And I am Sheila Battle.
And thank you all for watching and listening to another episode of Soulful Conversations with Frank and Sheila.
Take care, family, and be well.
Stay soulful.
Bye now.